Hi everyone, and thanks so much for joining me again today. I'm going to be working on another Bob Ross landscape, and this is the reference photo that I'm using today. I'm going to be using watercolor pencil, and while I create my landscape, I also want to talk about why it's such a good idea to take photos of your artwork as you're creating your piece. Taking process photos not only document your progress, but it can also show you some mistakes that maybe you made along the way that you want to remember how to correct. It can also give you inspiration for future artwork. And one of the biggest advantages for me is that sometimes I don't remember exactly what I did while I was making a painting. And so by going back and looking at photos, it helps me remember a technique maybe that I used, or just the particular process of that painting. I started my painting by just doing a really simple outline sketch of the major forms that are going to be in my painting. And then as you can see, I'm just activating the watercolor pencil with, I'm using a round watercolor brush. I am using a mixed media pad, so the paper is not watercolor paper. It is going to react a little bit differently, but it still works. And there is a little bit of a glare on my paper. I'm sorry about that. I'm still figuring out the right lighting for my videos, but I'm just activating that outline drawing first. And as you can see with watercolor pencil, if you've watched my other videos, I used the water soluble wax pastels a lot. Those colors are much more intense. Watercolor pencils are going to give you a much softer look, and for me, I like to layer and build my colors, so watercolor pencils do take a little bit longer for me anyway to kind of get the effect that I'm looking for. And so I don't reach for them as much as I probably should, but if you're going for a really soft, subtle drawing tool or painting tool, watercolor pencils are really easy to use and they are fun. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Kathleen and I'm an artist and a teacher, and right now I work with aging adults. I teach beginner painting, mixed media, some general craft type of projects, and a lot of my videos that I do on my YouTube channel really are inspired by my students that I have. I'm trying to do some really simple, basic tutorials that anybody can follow, whether you've been painting a really long time or if you're brand new to making artwork. Watercolor pencils are a great tool to get started with because you really have a combination of two different tools. You've got a drawing tool, you've got a coloring tool, and also a painting tool. And you can get watercolor pencils really reasonable now. I believe Crayola even makes watercolor pencils now, and they're just fun to sit down and play with. The only thing is you have to make sure that you are using a watercolor paper or at least a mixed media paper, and otherwise, your paper is really not going to be able to withstand all of the water that you use. So as I progress through my painting now, I'm just continuing to build more layers and just add more depth. At this point, I'm just playing, I'm scribbling, I'm adding color, and this is more of a sketching activity for me. I don't really like to do a lot of pre-sketching. I call it my organic process, and really what that means is I just kind of like to do a very intuitive type of process. I tell my students it's sort of like going on a road trip without a map. I just want to play and really see what I can come up with. And the thing that I really like about the watercolor pencil is you can really move that color around and pick it up and put it in different places and get a lot of different techniques. And I'm really enjoying this, what I'm getting here with my mountains, and I'm getting some really, pretty color, but I'm also getting some nice value and some shading and some depth. As I'm looking at this video and doing not just process photos, but for me, I'm actually doing a process video, what I'm learned throughout this painting was, as I progressed, I really enjoyed the really soft quality to my painting. And as you watch me continue and finish my painting, I do add quite a bit more color and add a lot heavier pigment to my painting, and I really like the way that the painting looks now. So one of the reasons I said it's a good idea to take process photos of your artwork is that it can inspire you to create future artwork. And so that's really what this one is doing for me here. I'm really liking the way my painting looks right now, even though I did continue and add more color and add more things to my painting. I think I want to go back and make one that is a little bit softer and that sort of stops, you might say, halfway between what I have now and what I end up with at the end. This painting actually did inspire another painting, one that was much more abstract and much brighter and intense, and I'll put the link to that so that you can see my process video of that particular painting. So that's why I want to do one that's even more subtle and softer so that I can have a nice little range of paintings that are similarly inspired but are different techniques. And that's another way that you can improve your artistic process, is trying different techniques and different ways to create your paintings. A lot of artists are constantly trying to find their style, and I feel like I do have a particular style, but I feel like by experimenting and trying different things, it's really helping me expand my knowledge, not only of the materials, but of the processes of making art. And it's very relaxing, and it gives me a sense of accomplishment when I come up with something new, and it's fun and exciting, and it inspires me for my future artwork. One of the reasons why I started this particular challenge, which it's now March and I started this in January, is because I was very uninspired. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was kind of unmotivated with making art after the holidays and the beginning of the new year. And so by starting a challenge, it was sort of giving me a jumping off point. It's taken me so long to do those 30-day challenges because, unfortunately, I've been sick a couple times in the new year. I had a bug, and then about a month later, I got the flu really serious and had my flu shot, but I haven't been that sick for a very, very long time. So this challenge has been good because even though it's taken me longer than the 30 days, when I wasn't really feeling great, it kind of gave me an idea of what to do. I didn't have to sit and kind of figure out what I wanted to create. I just went back to my Bob Ross calendar and said, okay, I'm just not feeling great, but I'm just going to look at Bob Ross and be inspired by some of his paintings. And I'm not trying to copy his paintings. I'm just trying to use them as inspiration to create my own work. So one of the other things I talked about, an advantage to taking process photos or actually even videotaping your art making process, is that you can maybe see some mistakes that you made and make some corrections. And as this painting progressed, I wasn't really thrilled with how these trees were turning out. I found that they were much too heavy for the rest of the painting, and after I had added that first layer, I tried to sort of correct it a little bit, but what I learned was that I just laid that color on too heavy to start with, and I need to start lighter with the trees and build my color a little bit slower. And so because my trees were so heavy, I felt like I needed to add some more color to the rest of the area. So at this point, I decided to use my water-soluble wax pastels because you can layer a little bit easier. If I'd tried to put a yellow watercolor pencil over top, it probably wouldn't have worked real well. So I was starting to use the wax pastels, and I'm adding some brighter colors, and I decided I'd just go with it. I wasn't thrilled with how the trees look, but I thought I'm just gonna lean into that and just go with a much more intense and much more expressive painting than what I had started with the mountains. So I am still using the wax pastels, and I'm adding some shadows To the water, I'm adding some green so that it sort of gives the impression of the trees reflecting in the water. I'm also adding some heavier lines to the mountains. I'm just really doing some scribbling, and even though I didn't love this painting once it was finished, I really enjoyed the process. I just really love coloring. I love scribbling. And for me, the creating artwork is not just about what I'm going to end up with. I don't sell my art. I just like to create my art, and I listen to some really nice, relaxing music while I create my art. And so it's just a mindful activity for me. Try not to worry too much about what the painting is going to look like at the end. So now I'm going to just continue creating my painting. I hope you'll stay with me to the end so you can see the finished product. And I hope that you were inspired to maybe take some photos or even videotape your art making process. You don't have to share those videos or the photos with anybody, but it really will help you to kind of see your progress and help you figure out maybe some changes to your painting or inspire you in your future work. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you'll like this video and subscribe to my channel.